Well, hello again and welcome to this second video of the workshop 3. For this video, it's very important that you have this file, either you did it or you're using the one that I sent you, the clean data set. So not the original, but the clean data set. So once you have this, you should open a data set, a new data set in SPSS. When it pops up, just say new data set, and it will look like this. And the first thing that you need to do is, maybe you can familiarize a little bit with that with SPSS if you have never used it, but I will tell you what to do, because the first thing that you need to do is to input the data. But before we input the numbers, it's important that we input the variables first. So instead of working with data view, we are going to work with variable view. So the first thing that we are going to do is from this file, the data clean file, I will start kind of moving my variables from here to SPSS. And what I will do is at first I will copy this, the name gen or from gender, and I will put it in here. So it's gen, right, for gender. You will see that automatically a few things appear, and I will try to explain you what it means. Keep it as numeric because it means that you will input a number. That's great. The second thing is about how would you want this thing to appear in the data view. Since we will have so many variables, my suggestion is that you change it to 5. The next thing is about the decimals. Since we are going to work with 1 and 0, my suggestion again is to use 0 as decimals because we won't have 1.5 or anything, right? Then the next thing is about the label. How do you want to call this variable? I think you can do whatever you want. You can call it gender or whatever, but since we already have the code and we don't have that many variables, let's keep it as gen, only gen. Values, you don't have to do anything, missing nothing, because it all works out well. You will see when you input the data. Columns, you reveal like that. Align, you can change if you want. Measure, this is super important. For this, you need to watch the pre-recorded lecture on quantitative research to understand the different types of measures that exist. Basically, is a scale, which I can quickly give you a mini lecture on measurements, but we can measure things on a nominal way, which gender is an example. So 1 and 0 is just showing that there are different things. 1 is something and 0 is something different. 1 is female and 0 is something not female. It doesn't mean that 1 is more than 0, right? So nominal are every measure that is treated like that, that 1 and 0 only, or 2 or 3 or whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are only different things, but it doesn't mean that 1 is more than 0 or that 2 is more than 0. So gender is the perfect example. 1 is female, 0 is non-female, but it doesn't mean that 1 is more than 0, right? There will be others where that was important. We will come to that. So once we are done with gender, then we go to age. Age, we also change to 5 and 0 for decimals, and we keep all of these things, and then we reflect about the measurement. Measurement of age is actually a scale. A scale measurement is when the difference between 1, 2, and 3 is actually the same kind of length or the same distance. The same distance between 1 and 2 is the same as from 2 and 3. So for example, here a ruler is the icon, because a ruler is a good example of a scale variable. Like the distance between 1 meter and 2 meters is exactly the same as in 2 and 3 meters. And here it matters. 22 is more than 21 in a scale that is the same as 22 more than 20, and as 22 more than 22, 23 more than 22. I hope you are not confused. If you are confused, go and watch the mini lecture on quantitative research. So now the next variable is year. So it's the same as in here. We keep 5, we keep 0, because we don't need decimals for year. And it's also a scale, right? It matters. 2022 is more than 2023. Sorry, the other way around. 2023 is more than 2022. And the distance is the same as 2024 to 2023. The next variable is university, if they studied in Jönköping or not. So we call it uni, and then we have 5 and 0. And we give it also a nominal, right? Because we're going to use only 1 and 0. And if they study in Jönköping, it's just to show that it's a different university. So don't worry for this university. The next one is the level. Here it's interesting. In level, and decimal 0. Level, we have 1 and 0. 0 is bachelor, 1 is master. This is also a good example of an ordinal scale, the third type of variable. An ordinal scale is where master comes after bachelor, but the distance between one or the other is not the same. So for example, we could have said 0 bachelor, 1 master, and 3 PhD and 2 PhD. It doesn't mean that the distance between bachelor, master, and PhD is the same. Another example of ordinal variables is like in a race, the first place, it comes first than the second, and the third comes later, but the distance between them is not exactly the same. It's not like in meters, like 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meters is the same distance, right? Here, the distance can be different. What matters is only to show that what comes first. First is bachelor, second master, third PhD. That's what matters for ordinal variables. Again, take a look at that mini lecture on variables if you want to be sure. So level, it's a nominal variable. The next one is Sweden. If they are Swedish, I call it Sweden. You can call it nationality or whatever, but again, for the sake of this workshop, call it like I called it. Again, we change to 5, we keep decimal as 0, and this is also nominal because it only shows that 1 means the person was born in Sweden, 0 that no. And then we approach to the interesting variables, happiness. So I will start with hap1 or whichever is your dependent variable. If for example, if you are group 11, I believe your variable is SRI or SCB. I know from the 30s, like 35, group 35, you will use the global mindset. So here, start with your dependent variable, right? Happiness or SRI or SCB or GMS. So whatever you have, I'm assuming I'm like group number 2, so I have happiness. Happiness, I have happiness, I do the same. This 0 decimals because it's only 1 to 10. And then this is a scale. It's actually a scale, and we call it a scale, the Likert scale. You remember we discussed that in workshop 1 that we're going to use 1 to 10 on the Likert scale. So it's a scale. And we do the same for happiness 2, and happiness 3, and happiness 4. And it's the same for everything. 5, 5, 5, 0, 0, 0. And everything is scaled. It actually automatically changes later. So after that, the next thing is if you go back to your model, remember to include all of these variables from the data set in the SPSS. So also include FST1, UST, all the FSTs. So FST, here it is, FST1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So FST1, FST2, FST3, all of those. After FST, I need to include, if you check this, I need to include university satisfaction. So you do the same with university satisfaction, you include university satisfaction. Maybe one question in here can be, should I, because maybe you have two variables, the inverse and the original one, right? Do you remember the original? We had to treat it a bit differently from the last video that we had to do 11 minus the number. That number, you forget it, the original one. Keep the one that you recalculated. That's the one that appears in here. So you do that for everything. And then once it's done, then you come back to data view, and then you can do the copy paste from Excel. You can go step by step to be careful that everything works. So maybe you want to start with everything for gender. So you copy all the numbers for gender, you start in here, and then you do Control B, and then solve for gender. You can do all for age and all like that, like not this way, but like this. So you can copy everything, and then you can do for the same for happiness. Again, I already work on that. And the big database with all the variables look like this. So all the variables are here. All the variables are in here. We actually have 86 variables. That's a lot of variables, but that's our design. It's very ambitious, but we managed to make it work. So that's it for the first video on SPSS. We have a little bit more. Now we have all the data, as you can see, in the correct form and all of that. We have all of that in here. So that's good to start with. We are going to continue with the analysis in the next video.